I have a question for you. Do you like beautiful girls? Do you like beautiful boys? Do you like holographic baddies? What about girls who work on cars? Girls who bark at cars? Girls who work at bars? Do you like kissing, cuddling, flirting, fuck? Well, that is unfortunate because you are
Materless.
psych. Guess what? We got all that shit in video games. Mass Effect, more like ass respect. The side of an alien's boob? Yes, please. Did someone say hot sorceress? How about two? Or maybe just one? But she's blue. No matter who you are or what you're into, there's a compelling video game companion for you. Now, as a gamer, it is my personal opinion that video games are the peak of romance in any form of media. Now, every format has its own strengths and weaknesses. Books, for example, are extremely long and extremely descriptive. Movies have the benefit of casting a live actor that you already have a crush on. But video games have something that neither of these two mediums really can pull off. These other two formats don't have the ability to just toss you straight into the middle of this world and allow your decisions to affect the outcome of this relationship. Whether you decide to help your partner achieve their dreams or decide to crash out and do something extraordinarily shitty to the girl of your dreams, that's up to you. And movies and books just simply can't do that. Unless, of course, you're reading a choose-your-own-adventure book, but I don't know if those exist for romance. Now, there are some games where this doesn't directly apply, because there are some very linear games that feature some very linear romances. And at that point, you're kind of just giving away the advantage that you have on this medium, which is also why I think the games where the romances hit the hardest are almost always RPGs or other games where there's several options, whether there's different love interests or a different way to approach a love interest. I believe that having this choice and directly interacting is what makes romance in video games so compelling. There are just so many games that do a fantastic job of creating these romances and relationships that are worth exploring and experiencing, that there's no way a YouTuber of my skill level and experience is going to make a video covering all of them. But what I can do is share with you some of the games that have some sort of landmark in my memory for some reason or another. And with that said, I have a question for you. Do you remember your first crush? You most likely do. What about your first celebrity crush? How about your first crush on a character in a video game? And I'm specifically talking about characters with a personality and storyline. Otherwise, this would just be a 30-minute video of me talking about the Chun-Li skin from Fortnite. Anyways, I remember mine, and honestly, I remember it left me feeling quite disappointed. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, I got my first Xbox 360, and one of the games that I recall seeing on YouTube and just obsessing over before I even owned the console was Fallout 3. With it being the late 2000s and me being a young boy, this was the perfect combination for me to be absolutely obsessed with zombies and everything post-apocalyptic. So when I saw that there existed a post-apocalyptic RPG in which you can roam around the wasteland inverting enemies' heads in slow motion, I wanted that shit. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the opening sequence of this game. It basically takes you through a couple jumps in time throughout your childhood. And this entire time, it's building up this relationship between you and a girl named Amada. And the game's just establishing how close the two of you are. You guys are best friends. And in every big moment of your childhood, she's right there with you. All the way up until your shithead dad steps out for a smoke and lets all the roaches in. I'm still a bit confused on why everyone in the vault wants me dead for my dad leaving, but that's besides the point. Anyways, you fight your way out this bitch, and eventually you make it out to the vault door, where you meet Amada. And she's there to help you open the door and to wish you farewell. And at this point, no crush was developed, right? Seemed like a totally standard intro, and I was sure I was never going to be coming back to the vault. You go on your merry way, you go do a whole main quest line and whatever else you feel like doing. But eventually you come back to the vault in which you started. And when you do, you get to catch up with Amada. And I don't know if it's just me and the way I'm remembering it through the perspective of my young self playing this, but it felt as though there was this tension in the air of what could have been between the two of you. What would have happened if you would have stayed in the vault and stayed by Amada's side? And on its own, this is fine, it's whatever, but my poor little heart was absolutely body slammed when I found out there wasn't an option to either stay in the vault with Amada or have her come join you in the wasteland. I mean, can you imagine what it would have looked like if Bethesda fleshed out the relationship between these two characters further? Because I still think about that sometimes, even though it's been a decade and a half since I first played this game. But after a short couple of years, my heart had the time to repair, and we got the first trailer for a game you likely know very well. We got the first trailer for Skyrim, and I was absolutely shitting my pants with anticipation for this game to release and for me to set out and enjoy this beautiful fantasy setting. My whole middle school was just a buzz with people talking about this game. I had never played Oblivion myself, but I remember that whole week I was hearing so much about that game from friends who had either played the game themselves or some that had seen their older siblings play it. The hype that was surrounding this game for kids my age was insane, and I knew immediately that this game was going to be a banger. But what I didn't know is that after my adventures of slaying dragons and devouring their souls like hot Cheetos, I would find myself settling down with one Ayla the Huntress. And suddenly, after a long day of punching graybeards in the back of the skull for hours on end, I would come home to the missus. And this time, I literally mean missus. There was a whole-ass, full-ass quest where you could marry the companion of your choosing. And this blew my little mind out of my even smaller skull. I had never even thought it was possible to play a game where you can romance a character and they would be at your house waiting for you to just chat or hang out with whenever. Now, the romance system in Skyrim didn't have that much depth to it, so I never really spent that much time with it. But one thing that Skyrim did that was very impressive was the amount of characters you can romance. I mean, look at this list right here. That's just the women. These are the dudes you can romance. Even for modern standards, this is a pretty insane selection of characters. Also, I just had to show you guys this. When I was writing the script, I came across this video, and some of y'all are freaks for real. Even without the romance system having a lot of depth in Skyrim, it still had an impact on me. I mean, I'm talking about it in this video. But when you take a romance that is very well written and has a lot of depth to it and throw it into a game, it can double the quality of an already great game. I mean, imagine playing through The Witcher 3 The Wild Scrunt without the romantic interests. Dog, you think I'm just here to fight monsters? Absolutely not. Brother, I am here for the red-haired seductress. I mean, don't get me wrong, this game would still be very good without the romances, but I don't think it would be nearly as good as it is. The relationship dynamic between these three characters is so beautiful and complex. I mean, it started a civil war in the comments of basically every Witcher 3 video on YouTube. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen arguments of who's saying this wifey is the wifey, and everyone who disagrees is invalid and also brain dead. And at the risk of really pissing some people off, I'm gonna weigh in on this. You see, I've read through all of the books twice, which to a lot of people makes it all the more surprising that I pick Triss every playthrough. And hear me out, please. I do believe that Sapkowski, or however you pronounce his name, it was very clearly his intention that the couple is Yennefer and Geralt. But oh my god, are these two toxic. And I know some of y'all are into Dommy Mommies, and I'm not gonna hate there, but this relationship dynamic is not for me. I mean, in the books, Yennefer has Geralt come stay with her, and the whole time that he's sleeping at her place, she's leaving early in the morning to go sleep with a wizard. I cannot tell you how guilty I felt on my first playthrough though, when I chose Triss, but I accidentally skipped Yennefer's storyline where you undo the wish. Oh man, that was pretty brutal. But I feel like this game does the romance so well because it makes the story beats punch so much harder. I mean, every enemy defeated and every monster slain has so much impact when you're fighting for someone that you care about. And sometimes the coolest interactions in a game will happen because of a relationship that you developed with a character. For example, Triss and I pulled up to a fort chock full of baddies. Triss tells me there is no way we are sneaking into this place, and she suggests that we put shackles on her, walk her up to the gate, pretending that she's a prisoner that we are turning in. And when you go to turn her in, they nearly instantly start speaking of torturing her. In this situation, you have the option of letting them torture her for however long you choose, but there is another option where you can use your Jedi hand sign and tell them that they will not be torturing her. And naturally, because there's other guards that watch you throw up the set, this does not work and you have to fight your way out. Once the dust settles, Triss acknowledges that you did this and that there's zero chance it would have worked. But she recognizes that you did it because you care about her, and that's pretty tight ass. I could go on for a while about this game, but this isn't a Witcher video. So let's take a step away from the fantasy genre as a whole and look at what is probably the top dog in romance in space. Mass Effect. There certainly is a case for all three games to be here in this video, but I want to take a moment to narrow our sights on Mass Effect 2. Stepping into Mass Effect 2, right off the rip there is a big decision to make. And this is whether you play as male Shep or femme Shep. And there are definitely perks to playing either one. Let's be honest, female Shepherd has way better voice acting than male Shepherd does. I mean, it's a pretty stark contrast, to be honest. But it is so hard not to choose male Shep when you have a romance option like Tali. I genuinely think that the reason I like this game as much as I do is because of the Tali romance. And I don't think I'm the only one. I mean, look at this poll that I found where 40,000 people were asked who they romance as male Shepherd. Tali comes out on top by a pretty sizable margin. And what a fascinating character she is. All of her little quirks, from being on a quiet ship making her uneasy, because on a Quarian ship that means that the air filtration isn't working. Or being the exact opposite of me and loving being in crowded places because they remind her of home. They just give me panic attacks. Or the complex issue of alien racism. Not to even mention the fact that Quarians as a whole have a dog-ass immune system. This means that they spend the entirety of their lives in these sanitized suits with a ventilation system. And I'm sure you don't need me to explain all the complicated issues this would bring into a romantic relationship. I do feel as though we can't even discuss romance in Mass Effect without taking a second to at least talk about the giant scandal that came with Mass Effect 1. And I don't know if you guys also remember this, but there was a Fox News segment where they were full tweaking about the sex scenes in Mass Effect 1. The clip's still up on YouTube and you can check it out. I remember they were talking about how this game had full nudity and graphic sex, neither of which are true. I mean, these scenes were a little bit spicy, but this was honestly kind of tasteful, especially when compared to something like the literal sex minigames that were in God of War on the PlayStation 2. Which came out in 2005, by the way. And I didn't hear a peep about that on the news. So I quite frankly don't want to hear shit about a game that portrays intimate scenes in a manner that isn't trivializing and is in the greater context of a relationship between two characters that care about one another. It is also very clear that it doesn't make a lot of sense to go too hard on this, because this was back in 2007, and the way video games are viewed now is a far cry from the way they were viewed almost 2 decades ago. If we look at a more modern game that is also in the sci-fi genre, we have Cyberpunk 2077. And I know it's nearly impossible to even talk about this game without first addressing the dumpster fire situation that was the launch of this game, which was genuinely unjustifiably bad. But if you revisit this game after CDPR gave this game the love and attention it deserved, you will find that this game has incredibly well-written characters, a fascinating story, and some phenomenal romanceable characters, each with their own defined and immersive quest lines. You've got Judy, who works with the Mox as like a techie who makes brain dances and works on anything technology related. You have Panam, who is an ex-nomad who is a very skilled mechanic and also a very skilled mercenary. You have Carrie, who is a washed up rock star with all the bad rock star habits, but can also sure as hell play the guitar. And you have River, who is a detective in the most merciless cold city. I've done 2 separate playthroughs of this game, one in which I romanced Judy, the other in which I romanced Panam. And both were great companions, with vastly different personalities and great personal storylines. I personally like Panam a little bit more, just because I kind of dig her personality a little bit more in general, but she also meshes really well with the back half of the game. CDPR also at some point after the last time I played this game, added in a feature where romantic interests will send V steamy texts and photos. From what I've seen online while writing this video, a lot of people are very big fans of this addition to the game. Probably the biggest standout feature in this game that I, honest to God, did not expect at all. I'm about to quickly drop a spoiler for one of the endings of this game, so skip ahead a little bit if you don't want to hear that. When you get to almost the end of this game, there's an option where instead of going to confront the big bad guys or do that kind of thing, you can instead go up to the roof of the building and do a self-inflicted game over screen. If you somehow hate a good ending enough to choose to do this, then in the credit sequence, there will be several voicemails that are left to you by characters that you met throughout the game. And there are 2 very impactful voicemails, one left by Panam and one left by Judy. I have never gotten this ending myself, but I've watched videos of it, and it is a punch in the gut. Even more so if you've romanced either of these 2 characters. And it is, it's pretty rough. But let's shake ourselves out of that funk and take a look at what is probably the apex of romances and relationships in video games. Baldurs Gate 3. And however I ended up making the thumbnail for this video look, I can guarantee some of you expected this game to be in here. Because this game does relationships and character development so well. And not just romantic ones. But every interaction you have with a character in this game is top tier. I remember when this game first released, there were so many times I'd hear or see people joking, referring to this game as a dating sim, which obviously undersells the rest of this game by a very large shot. But this game does the relationships so well that I guarantee there are people who play it specifically for that. One of my friends and I played through the entirety of this game in co-op. In this playthrough, I got to see two separate romances, because he romanced Lae'zel and I romanced Shadowheart. And holy hell was I impressed by Shadowheart's story and her development as a character. Larian does a seriously impressive job in giving this character a story that makes you feel and makes you care about her as a character. Lae'zel was also great. Her backstory was a little less traumatic, but she was absolutely hilarious and was always putting up huge damage numbers. Hearing these characters chime in on whatever situation was going on as we played through the story made us care about these characters so much more and gave us so much more of an insight about how they feel about situations or what makes them happy or what upsets them. It truly makes these characters feel alive when you're interacting with them without even going out of your way to do so. Just going along the story mission and seeing the way they react to the choices that you make and the decisions that you decide to act on. I enjoyed this game so much that I fully intend on going back and playing through it again. Maybe even on stream at twitch.tv/bastard. Check the description. Honestly, if you were to take just one game that I talked about today as a recommendation that you need to play, let it be this one. I cannot stress enough how impressive the depth to this game is. Not just in characters or the world, but in every single mechanic and every facet of this game is incredible. By far my favorite part of making these videos is just having a conversation about it. So if you guys could take the time to let me know what you think, what games I should play, it really would mean a lot to me. If you guys could also help me get to 2,000 subscribers, that would be huge. I finally got my cool little join button down there. I have no members right now, obviously, but once I do, their names will be thrown up here on the back of the screen in the outros to my future videos. Thank you guys for watching.